All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Talking Hornets again tonight. And what I wanted to do this evening is last week I was working on posing the Hornet model here. Let's take a look at it. This is the unposed version, sort of the T-pose. And what I wanted to do was tonight work on actually folding these front wings, because if you notice wasps, when you look at pictures of wasps, when they're not flying or when their wings are unfolded, when they're not flying, they're just kind of crawling around, they tend to fold their wings here. And this is one of the things that they do that's very different from bees. Bees don't fold their wings like this, but the front wing is kind of folded like a taco. And I wanted to actually do this tonight because I think it's an important feature for understanding wasps. It's kind of a cool feature of wasps, and it kind of also helps me complete my my composition. So what I'm going to do is I went back to this unposed version, and I'm going to create a folded version of the wings and then import that into my my posed version and put them on there, and then talk about maybe doing some rendering in Redshift for ZBrush and see where that takes us this evening. So should be kind of interesting. I know I've folded the wings once before in a different Hornet, and it's a little bit tricky. The biggest problem is that there's like very little good reference on how wasp wings actually fold. At least online, looking around quickly through Google. I did manage to find this image, which is from a scientific paper, which is extremely helpful because it shows that fold line. This is the part that I always have trouble figuring out. So in two different types of wasps, two different wings, and it shows a little bit about this. And just to mention this a little bit, what I wanted to do was just talk a little bit where I got this diagram, a very little bit. It's from a scientific paper which I found today and I haven't had a chance to read, but I want to just show you the paper real quick. I think it's important to do this because I think people forget that the reality of science is that it's really dry and boring, and that's what makes it great. We've gotten into an age now where it's just like science has gotten so like hyped up that people think this is like some kind of like modern magic, and we have especially astronomers, people talking about galaxies and stars and getting all freaky and crazy with it. But the reality is that there's nothing like a good, dry, boring paper. That's what gets me excited. So this is a paper about the protein structure that actually allows insect wings to do things like fold and that kind of stuff. Like I said, I haven't read through it yet. I usually make it through the abstract and the first few pages, and it gets usually very technical. But there's some cool images in here. Nice little cross sections here. It talks about a number of insect wings. This is, for instance, is a dragonfly, either dragonfly or damselfly wing. Let's see, yeah, it's a dragonfly wing. And then here we have our wasp wings, or Hymenoptera. This could be a bee. Let's see. This is a honeybee, so this is Apis mellifera. And if we go down here, here's our wasp ring. So, cool stuff. Real science, man. Nice and boring, just how it should be. I'm just kidding. I mean, I think science is fascinating, but when you get into the nitty-gritty of it, it tends to be extremely dry. So I say hi to everybody who's showing up and watching with me tonight. I'm going to turn off my AC so I don't have that noise in the background. Hi to Valentine, my little sweetheart. I know she's watching tonight, and I know she loves bugs just as much as I do. So the first thing I want to do here, though, is since I modeled this a while ago, I want to double check and make sure that my wing veins are correct. Because sometimes, it's like it's been so long since I modeled this particular wasp, or started this model, that I don't remember everything that I did. I think up here we need a little bit more of on the wing veins. I did the veins and the membranes as separate pieces. So let's go in here and just beef this part up a little bit. Right here, here, and here. Let's take the old inflate brush. And then let's take a look at the pattern here and see. This part looks pretty good. This part looks okay. Yeah, I think for the most part it's good. I mean, you could quibble a little bit about the placement of some of this stuff, but I think overall it's not bad. Okay. So the trick is, of course, since I have the membrane and the veins as two separate subtools, I want to fold both of them at the same time. So what I can do is, let's do this. I'm going to clone the wings and then use Transpose Master to do the actual folding. So let's see where I have the wings. The wings. Here we go. One more time. So I'm going to clone this and then go down here to the membrane. Let's rename this. It's front. Sorry, vein. And go back to our wing. Do a quick append. There we go. Turn off the solo. So now we have them as two separate subtools. Let's do all low. And then what I'm going to do is, let's make sure they have unique names. So I'm going to call this front wing to pose. I always like to make sure that my subtools have unique names, even with the other tools that are loaded in this session, just because I know that if you have the same name for various different subtools, ZBrush can sometimes get confused. So I'll call this front main to pose. This usually happens when you're using something like Transpose Master. It might just be actually a superstition of mine, but it doesn't hurt to make sure everything has unique names. At very least, it makes it easier to find here in the toolbox, because it can get as this gets cluttered, it can be harder to figure out what's what. Okay, enough of that. Let's go in here and say Z plugin, and we're going to do Transpose Master, and let's do T-pose mesh. So there we go, nice and fast, and let's pick a nice light color. And let's take a look at our paper here, or the image from the paper. So it looks like this right here, let's rotate this, is close to our wasp wing right here, our wasp wing. So it looks like it's basically coming through from, the line is coming through from underneath this part and just below here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go into the mask brush. I'm going to hold control. Let's get this out of the way for a second. And mask curve, right? Make sure we have symmetry on. Yes. Oops. And let's draw a curve. So we want to go from right down here. The only problem with that, of course, is since it's low poly, that our wing mask is going to be hard to get more precise. So that's okay. We'll do mask pen here. I don't want to change the topology or anything, obviously, because we had ran into that last week where I changed the topology by accident and then I messed up Transpose Master. So we'll have to do a little bit of cleanup here. What I could do is, well, no, let's just go with it. Position the gizmo, oops, on that line, roughly. Let's turn on double-sided so it's easier to see what's going on. Display properties, double-sided. Oh, we're gonna have a little cleanup here. It's okay. Actually, you know what I should do? Let's undo that real quick. And let's store a morph target. That will make cleanup easier. Let's try that again. This is a little bit dry, but I think this is a bit too much of a mess, so I think what I might do is, let's go back. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back a few steps because I think this is too low poly and it's going to make things kind of tough. So let's do load tool. Okay. Let's try this. Make things a little bit easier. I'm going to clone the wings again, front wings. So clone that. So it just makes a copy of the tool here in the toolbox. Let's go back to our model here. Click on the wing vane and append that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to subdivision level 3. This is the case. So I think having more polygons will make it easier to mask and easier to edit. So I'm going to go to subdivision level 3 here, and I'm going to choose delete lower. My brain just stopped there for a second. Apologies. Geometry, thank you. Delete lower. Let's do the same thing on the veins. The subdivision level 2, I think. Oh yeah. Delete lower. So we still have our higher levels of subdivision, and we should still have our poly paint. Right? Yep. Okay, so now let's rename this. we'll call this front wing fold. All right, and now let's go into transpose master, T-pose to sub, T-pose mesh. Okay, there we go. Yeah, actually the anchor brush is a good idea. ZBrush does actually have an option for multiple views at once, and I forget how to do it. It's not super easy. Let's see. Anchor brush. But I still want to mask this though. Yeah, I think that's going to be easier just because it's not so much that, oops, it's the transpose as it is the masking. Make sure that it's symmetrical. The reason I like transpose is because I can orient the gizmo pretty easily to get more of a precise rotation, but this is worth checking out just for the fun of it. Let's move and rotate. It's kind of funky. Let's see, let's try the classic. That's not too bad. Yeah, it's a little tapered though. It's a little wonky. Let's try transpose real quick. Yeah, okay, that works a lot better. Oh, one thing I forgot to do, store more target. There we go. Okay. I think that works pretty well. I mean, there's some cleanup involved, but it's not too bad. I think it's better than what I was doing before. Just needed more polygons to make the masking a bit more effective. Now what I can do is go in here with the move brush. Yeah, the anchor brush is really cool though. I like it. I every once in a while completely forget that it exists because it's kind of newer, but it's so awesome for doing quick poses. I've just been using transpose forever, so. And I used to use the old transpose. I mean, I love when they introduced the gizmo. The gizmo was such a wonderful addition. People were screaming about that for years. To get, if you've ever used the old-fashioned transpose line, it can really drive you nuts. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a very old school way of moving things in ZBrush. Kind of wonky. Actually, that could have probably worked pretty well in this situation as well, but I think the gizmo is fine. Now what I can do is just go in here and just bring down the smooth Z intensity of the smooth brush a little bit. One thing I'm concerned about is I just folded this so that, let's take a look at our reference, make sure I did it right, because I might have done it completely wrong, obviously. So if we look at our reference here, if we're looking at the top, and I believe this is the top, one way to find out, yeah, that's the top. It's hard to see if it's that it's folded the bottom over to the top or the other way around, because these guys are transparent. And that's the thing that's kind of driving me crazy right now. It's a little bit difficult to tell. Oh, actually I can kind of see through there. So let's do this. I think I did it the exact opposite way it's supposed to be. So let's try that again. One more time, just for fun. Store morph target. Do it like this. And I believe that I read, if I'm not mistaken, if there are any wasps experts in the room, hopefully I'm not wrong, that it actually folds the wing around the hind wings. So in other words, it's keeping the hind wings, which when I bring this back to the model, I'll show you what I mean. It's actually enclosing the hind wings within the fold, the sort of taco space of this wing, which is kind of interesting. Okay, let's do that. Okay, clear the mask. Yeah, the old transpose line. Yeah, when I taught Intro to ZBrush at Noman for many years, and that was the one thing that just like I had to warn people: this is gonna make you hate ZBrush, but you have to learn to embrace it. You don't have to learn to embrace it anymore. They made life easier for everyone by not necessarily getting rid of it, but giving a better alternative. The transpose tool still works in some situations. It can be quite useful, but I have to actually remember to use the. I'm glad you mentioned the anchor brush. I got to remember to use that more often because it's super handy. I'm still using transpose in situations where the anchor brush is even better. So let's see, since I have that morph target stored, maybe I can fix some of this stuff with a morph brush. Let's see, yeah. So I fixed some of the veining problems there, twisting. I can fix that pretty easily. The morph brush is another one that's like, if you remember to store a morph target before you start mangling things, can make your life a lot easier. Alright, my Z intensity, my smooth is too low. Okay, getting there, getting there, getting there. Then what I'll do is I'll get the move brush and whoops. That's the morph brush. Let's do topological. Rigging this to animate the folding process would be another good challenge. And what I need to do is take a look on YouTube and see if there are some good videos of the actual folding process, because there's not a whole lot of good images. It might be one of those things that's just hard to catch unless you spend a lot of time hanging out with wasps. There's a guy I follow on Instagram who goes by that wasp guy. He's an entomologist who specializes in wasps, and he's probably got some good info on this, so I have to bug him about it at some point. Quick tip, if you're using the smooth brush and you're having trouble smoothing along these border edges, this is a single-sided surface, right? So that's a border edge. What you can do is go into the brush menu, and under smooth brush modifiers, I'm going to hold the shift key and lower the min connected. So by default, min connected is at 3. So that means it's not going to smooth any polygons that have less than 3 connections or less than 3 vertices. If I bring this down, that makes it easier to smooth these border edges here. You have to be careful because it can be a bit extreme, so you might want to lower the Z intensity there, but that can help with some of these issues on the border edge. Okay, like here's a good example right there. And then let's do the inflate brush. Blah, blah, blah. Inflate this a little bit. Bring in move topological. Hopefully this is not too technical and boring, but again, for creature designers, this is a good idea for inspiration from nature, this idea of the way that wasps fold their wings, because bees don't do this. I think only wasps, beetles have their own way of folding their wings. And then if you look at dragonflies, when they're resting, their wings are still splayed out completely perfectly because they can't fold their wings at all. Damselflies can at least sort of move them up when they're resting. But dragonflies, being super primitive, super old school insects, they just kind of sit there with their wings sticking out. Wasps tend to crawl into small spaces. So do bees. I don't know why bees don't do this, but they don't. That's not how they're built. I believe bees split off from wasps at some point in evolutionary history. Definitely ants did. All ants come from wasps. Or I shouldn't say come from, that's a misleading term. There is a common ancestor. Basically, wasps were on the scene first, and then a particular species of wasp, Sphecomerma, is the sort of the missing link between modern wasps and ants. It's a social wasp, so some bug trivia for you. And wasps now are claiming claiming to be the kings of diversity. It used to be that we thought that beetles were the most diverse of all the insects, with some 400,000 or so known species of beetle, but they recently discovered that for almost every species of beetle there is a parasitoid wasp. In other words, a wasp that is a parasite on beetles, or parasitoid. Parasitoid means it's like a parasite, but it kills the host. So the xenomorph from Alien is parasitoid, not parasite. I believe. Hopefully I'm not wrong about that, but I think that's true. But since there's a species of parasitoid wasp for just about every species of beetle, that means that it only goes to show that there's probably more species of wasps than there are beetles, because then there's non-parasitoid wasps, right? So, and I think the smallest wasp, at least I read a paper on it a long time ago, the smallest wasp in the world is the size of a paramecium. So it's like the size of a single cell organism, even though it's a multi-celled organism itself. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. It could probably be a bit thinner, so let's see. What I should have done is I should have made a polygroup from that mask section, but that's okay. I can do this. Whoops, I don't believe that. And then just control click on here to blur the mask. Invert the mask by control clicking the blank part of the canvas, and then I'll just use this to squish it down a little bit. That looks pretty good. I could do more cleanup in the posed version. There's probably some kind of, like, not a joint, but an extra flexible part of the wing vein here. I don't know how visible it is. I couldn't see any good images of it, I'll have to read through that paper, but I think this would be good enough for our illustration. Okay, let's clear the mask and call this good enough. Take a quick look at our reference here. Yeah, I mean, this is like a really clean fold right here. It seems right here. You can definitely see that it's folded under. Okay, so I'm glad I went back and redid that. All right, we could do some cleanup in the final pose model. That's fine. Okay. I'm going to cheat this a little bit and pull this down to give it a sharper tip. Oh, the viewport head with an insect? The hell, that's a good idea. I forget how to do that. Is that in the document menu? How do you do that again? Is that under preferences? Thumbnail? That's this one. Yeah, I don't remember how to do that. Guessing it's under here. Cam view. All right, I'll take a look at that later. If you remember how to replace this with custom geometry, let me know in the chat. And I know there's a way to do it, but I always forget how to do it. Okay, so let's do this. Transpose T-pose to sub T. Let's make sure that we still have our poly paint. Yep, everything looks good. We still have our levels of subdivision. Just going to do a little edit right here because I think this needs to be sharper. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to save this tool as Front wing fold is good enough. And let's load my project. Let's actually, no, let's save this as yeah, what I should do is put like a little fly head up there. Give me a second to save here. Let's take a look at our reference while that's doing that. You can kind of see there's like a white line here. That's probably where it folds. Yeah, you can see here is the hind wing coming out from the inside of the folded wing. Okay, and let's open up while it's doing that. I'm going to think about lighting. So here is our posed version. And now what I'm going to do is I'll load that tool, front wing fold. And I'm going to make a folder here. It's a new folder. We'll just call this folded wing. Move the veins in there. Let's do this all low so it's a little bit faster. And then I'm going to go into Z plugin, subtool master. I'm going to do copy folder. So it's going to copy this folder, and then I'll go back to my pose here. 28. Okay. And then go down here and I'll choose Z plugin paste folder. That way I have both subtools in a folder and I can start posing them. So the next thing I'm going to do, let's turn on our transparency and find our folded wing, and I'm going to do transpose set. This might be a little bit tricky. It's not the right set. Oh, no, it is the right set. Turn off what you call it? Symmetry, and go in here and just start to roughly get in the same spot as the regular wings. Preferences, cam view. Bleh. Oh, I wish I had these in alphabetical order. Cam view. All right, hold on a second. Let me finish posing these things, and I'll do that just for fun. Okay, and let's do that. And now what I can do is go back to my original wings I'm not going to quite delete them, but I'll hide them. Paint for a second so it's a little bit easier to see what's going on. I'm wondering if this has to be at the center of the world for this to work. Let's give it a shot, see what happens. How long have you been in the industry and sculpting? I've been a ZBrush user since 2004, so that's about 20 years. I'm also I'm a 3D generalist, so I've done all kinds of things from scientific visualization, feature film, VR, planetarium shows, TV shows, commercials. And since you're giving me the permission to promote, I'm going to do it. I just have a brand new Gnomon Workshop video. It came out today. I'm telling you, today. It's hard to believe. And it is on the absolutely fascinating topic of UV texture mapping. So let's see. If you go to Gnomon Workshop, HIJKL, there I am, Eric Keller. This is actually an update to the one I did in 2018. So it's my UV toolkit. Nice technical, long, but useful information. You can check it out. Basically, it goes through every single button in the UV toolkit, and you know how to work it, how to use it. And then I have the example of this fairy model as a character model to demonstrate, different techniques for laying out and all that kind of stuff. So I have a bunch of stuff in the Gnomon Workshop, including several on insects, ZBrush stuff on insects. So this is my hyper-realistic insect design. This is an older one, but it's ZBrush, Maya, and Octane. And then I did this one a few years ago. This is ZBrush and Marmoset, sculpting an orchid mantis. I also talk about nerdy stuff like mantis anatomy. And then, of course, I also have this one on jumping spiders. So this is ZBrush, Maya, and Yeti, and also Redshift for that one. So that's a fun one. And then I also have these on Maya. And my website is lupatone.com. So if you want to check out a lot of bug models, animal models, and some character stuff. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see if this will work. Preferences, cam view, make cam view. Yeah, I think that's what I was afraid of. It has to be at the origin, otherwise it's not going to work. You can see how it's offset. So we'll deal with that in a second. There's a way we can do it, but okay. So let's go back to view 2. And now what I need to do is I need to pose these wings. This is going to be a little bit tricky. So let's take it one wing at a time. And I'm going to hide the hind wings right now because we can pose that in a moment. So let's go to front wing fold. And I'm going to do mask all on this. Oops, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. Mask lasso. Turn off symmetry. Don't want symmetry. Thank you. All right, losing my brain tonight. Okay, so now let's do this. Let's do transpose set. I set these all lowest subdivision level. Okay, that's better. And okay, and then let's invert the mask on that one, and invert the mask on this one, and go up here. Control I is one way to invert the mask. You can also control click on a blank part of the canvas. And let's make sure hold on a second, sorry. Let's make sure I didn't do this stupidly. So far so good, right? Goes like this, goes like this. That looks reasonable. I don't know exactly how it tucks in the lower wing inside there, but I guess we'll figure that out. Let's take a look at some reference real quick. This one is just kind of lower down by the side. Looking very waspy. I might cheat it a little bit, but that's okay. Okay, and let's save this real quick. Do a save next. This one they kind of splayed out a little bit more. So I mean, obviously it's whatever the wasp is doing at the time. Like this time they're way out from the body, and this one they're slightly up. But I think I like what we got so far. That's a dead wasp, so it's hard to tell. This one's dead as well, so that one's kind of more parallel to the body, kind of like ours. But yeah, you can see this is sort of tucked in there like that. That's a good reference image to have. Let's see. Sorry, I should turn off save undo history because it's taking forever. Okay. So I'm going to, once I finish posing this, I'm going to do some rendering in Redshift so we can play with creating some transparent materials and stuff like that, and also some lighting here in just a sec. But first I got to go and pose the hind wings now. Let's go do this. Let's do preference. Oh, sorry. Let's do files. Turn off undo history, and then so what I'm going to do now. Let's go up here and let's get rid of the original wings. Let's get rid of this one. And this one. So we'll rename this. Hind wing. And rename this. Okay. So same thing right here. I'm going to let's do this. Mask this. Oops, turn off symmetry. Mask this. Right here. Mask this. Turn off symmetry. There we go. Mask this. And turn off solo. Do transpose set. And move this over here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to tuck this in inside the wing. I'm still not sure exactly how that works. So I'm just going to leave this like this for now. So just real quickly. This is a great resource for insect reference. Wasp, there we go. So a lot of great Sorry, we're going to see some political ads and stuff. Hold on a second. Great slow motion, high speed photography of insects in flight. So this is great animation reference. This guy, I'm envious. If I could have any job in the world, it'd be this guy's job. He's a scientist. I think he's out in Florida, or I forget. But he just basically is an entomologist. He just takes high-speed photography of insects, doing all kinds of different things all day long. Look at this baby insect. Oh, they're so cute at that age. I'm sorry, baby wasp. And he posts these online. So really, really cool stuff. You can see when insect wings move, they're much more like swimming through the air. It's not a question of going up and down and just moving the air beneath the insect. It's much more of a swimming. Don't forget that air is a fluid medium. It is fluid dynamics. It operates on those laws. It's just a much lower density than liquid water, right? But it's still a fluid. So insects are basically, since they're so small and light, they're basically swimming through the air. And that's when I see animations of insects and their wings are just going up and down, I just find that really irritating. So what he's talking about here right now is, this is Hymenoptera. So when bees and wasps and sawflies and queen ants and male ants fly, their two wings, they connect their wings together via this these hooks that go along the vein of the wing, the leading edge of the hind wing and the back edge of the front wing. And so they hook them together so that when they're flying, it's like one big wing. That's one of the things that drives me crazy. Another thing, when I see animations of wasps and bees, since they have two sets of wings, they show them flying in opposition like a dragonfly wing. But Hymenoptera, literally the order is named after this ability of them to attach their wings together like this. So this is like really great reference. I don't know if he talks about, that guy's a consummate nerd. I love it. I don't know what he's talking about there. Probably ants, but I have to check out some of his lectures. See if there's anything else about wasps in here. Flies, jumping plant lice, springtails. I actually had to model some springtails for a job right now, so anyways, if you're looking for a great reference on insects, check this one out. Thanks. Hope you have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so I'm going to leave this. We'll see if I can adjust it with a move brush. I'm still not exactly sure how this fits in here, because if I folded this correct, and I'm still not sure that I have, this folded edge right here would not allow the hind wing to go inside, tuck in like that. So I have to double check and make sure that's right. But we're going to call for this evening's project, we're going to call this right, or correct for now. It's really hard to find good reference on specific stuff like this. It's just, I guess the internet is not as obsessed with how wasp wings work as I am. It's just too bad. The internet used to be useful. I don't know what happened. Oh, that's right, social media. Kids today, you know what I'm saying? Their TikToks and their dancing and their hip-hop pants and all the other ills of society that young people cause. Interest rates going up. Cats living with dogs. It's a madhouse, I tell you. Okay. Let's take a look at how this looks. Pretty good. Looking more wasp-like now. All right, we're gonna save it. Okay. Now, I'm going to turn on double-sided for everything. So I'm going to do display properties, double, and then I'm going to go up here under subtool and say apply last action to all subtools. So that should turn on double-sided for everything, just in case. There's only a few things that are single-sided. And now let's talk about some rendering. Of course, I don't have any poly paint on my twig here, but whatever, we'll deal with that later. What I'll do is, let's just do this real quick. Select my twig, and I'm going to fill it with a grayish brown color. And then I'll do a mask by cavity. Invert that mask, and let's fill that with a darker. And then we'll do mask by curvature. And we'll fill that with a lighter color. Just making a super quick poly paint on my twig here. Let's do mask peaks and valleys. And something like that. Good enough for jazz, right? We can go back and make it better later, but now we have something that looks a little bit more interesting. So now let's pick like a, let's apply some Redshift materials here. So I think for the wood, yes, thank you. Let's go in here and choose render, turn on Redshift. So I've got the clay. I'm going to apply the clay to just the twig here. So with the twig selected, make sure there's no masks applied. I'm going to turn on M for material and choose color fill object. And now if I switch to another material, right, everything else changes, but the twig remains a clay. Let's turn on perspective here. And then let's go for, just for now, I'm just going to switch to simple plastic glossy. And let's go in here and take the material palette and dock it so we can start adjusting these materials. And let's play with the lights a little bit. So if I just, I'm going to go all high. The other thing I want to do, since I'm rendering with Redshift, what Redshift is going to do is at render time, it will subdivide the model to make everything look smoother. But since this is already a high polygon model, I don't necessarily want to do that because it's going to add to render time, presumably. So we can turn that off by going into the tool palette, and down here under Redshift in the tool palette, blah, 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 Redshift render, I'm going to turn off smooth surface, and then I'm going to choose apply last action to all subtools, so I don't have to go through each subtool and make sure that's off, because this is turned on per subtool basis. So I'm going to turn those all off. Okay, so let's see. And let's just do a quick render just to see what it looks like. So hit BPR, it's going to initialize Redshift. So I'll take a sip of beer. Oh, I see they've upgraded this, so at least now it's telling it ZBrush is processing the scene. So the other thing about Redshift is the first time you render with Redshift, it has to load all the geometry and stuff into memory. So that usually takes longer, but then after you've done all that, subsequent renders with Redshift and ZBrush should be a lot faster. Is it really going to be 2 minutes? 2 minutes might be a bit long. Well, while that's doing that, let's go to Polyhaven. It's a great place to get HDRI images. I already have a bunch on my computer, but I just thought I'd show this site off because, oh, this is kind of nice, symmetrical garden. So I'm going to download this. Let's just do a 2K EXR. Download this. Something with a bit different, Victoria sunset. Let's do this. So just have a few down HDRs to work with. And I'm just going to copy them. Into my folder. Okay. If this is taking too long, I can shift everything to a lower subdivision level. That might make things a bit faster. Unless it's crashed. It might be crashed. I'll give it a few seconds. Hopefully it's not crashed. All right, that's taking too long, so I'm going to kill this and kill a few other things. And let's try that again. Open up ZBrush, and sorry about that. I think having everything at the highest subdivision levels means it's going to take freaking forever. This is probably what we're going to end up using as a thumbnail for this session. You just know it. Okay. Let's try this again. This time I'm going to do all low subdivision level. So speed up the rendering, that way we can deal with the lighting and the shading, and then increase the subdivision level as needed. So let's do this. I'm going to turn off smooth surface. Again, just to speed things up. Let's go in here, render. Redshift render, turn it on. Let's just switch to a default plastic goo. Sorry, default plastic glossy, not goo. And I'll do a save next. Okay, and let's do a quick render. Okay, now we're talking. Make sure we have perspective on. And then let's go in here and import those textures. These are the 3 HDRIs that I downloaded. So let's go into light and background, and we'll select one of those. Let's do this one, because it has clouds, right? If it looks really blurry, that's because you have perspective off. This always threw me off, like, what's wrong with my HDRI? And then it's like, oh, perspective. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go into the light palette, and then our default here, this would pretend this is the light on our camera. And I'm going to bring down the intensity and the ambient. I don't know if ambient has any effect on it. When the redshift, I forget. I believe it doesn't. And then hit this. There we go. That's looking kind of nice. I'm not crazy about having the background visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the light palette, and I'm going to turn this off, so that if I turn this off, the background is still going to light when I render. It's just that the background won't be visible. I wish they named it like visible instead of on. So that's kind of confusing. But if I do another render, you notice it's a lot faster now because it's loaded everything into memory. So there we go. Pretty nice looking render. Now we can start thinking about the materials. So let's turn on poly paint for everything. Let's turn on smooth surface and just see. I'll go down to the twig here, select it, and smooth surface is off of that. So what I'll do is smooth surface, do this for everything, and then turn it off for the twig. So there we go. And since we worked so hard on the model, maybe we should be a little bit closer up in the model. I know Megascans is wonderful, but it's just a prop. Just gonna get a view where we can actually see the wings. So for the twig, I'm gonna go in here, let's choose clay, and I'll do material. Let's do paint. Material, color, fill object, and hey Juan, how's it going? I'm okay, how are you doing? Okay, so let's go in here and choose let's see. I'm going to stick to okay, so just a quick explanation here. When you're working with Redshift, you see how it says poly paint materials and color materials? This is basically the poly paint materials means that it'll apply the material properties to your surface but keep that poly paint visible. And these, basically the color of the material overrides the poly paint. So for example, if I go in here and choose let's just do wax. No, that one takes forever. Aluminum. You see how it overrides the material color? So if I do a BPR here, we'll have a nice, cool, metallic looking Hornet here, but we won't see any of our poly paint. And you can see how the surface is smooth, even though it's in this lowest subdivision level, It's smoothing normal, so it makes it look nice. We're not seeing any detail that I sculpted in there because we're at the lowest subdivision level, just as a quick reminder. So let's go into simple plastic, and we'll use this as our basis for adjusting the material. So really, I only need a material for the twig, a material for the bug, at least for this just simple render, and then one for the wings to make them transparent, the wing membranes. But right now I'm just going to work on creating something that looks nice for the bug. And let's see. Our lighting is very simple. Let's keep it there for now. Go into the modifiers for the material, and this is our simple plastic glossy material. So the main things I want to do with this, at least initially, is to work a little bit with the specularity. So I'm going to go in here and increase the reflection roughness. And let's leave the IOR where it is. I don't need refraction on this, but we could use a little subsurface scattering. So let's increase the subsurface scattering. And I'll leave the other options alone for the moment. And then we'll play with the coat in just a second. But let's see how this looks. We can render a region, which would make things faster, but it's not too bad. So right now we have a very tight highlight, which is making it look very unrealistic and kind of plastic. One thing we could do is we could increase the subdivision levels on the head here. Let's select the head here and just increase it to, let's say, subdivision level 3, just so we get a little bit more detail on there. And let's get that reflect roughness up a little bit more. That's a little bit better. Compare it. Now, what we're seeing here in these pictures is the reflection of the flash on the camera. So this, whoever took this picture is not a very good macro photographer. When you do macro photography, like really good stuff, here's a good example. This person is probably using a flash on their camera, but they have a diffuser on it, so that you don't have that bright highlight. The reason you use a flash when you're taking macro photography of insects is because bugs move really fast, so you have to have a very fast shutter speed. So here's an example where not a very good diffuser on here, so we get a lot of that flash and it's kind of blown out. That one's okay. This one's in a light box. This one's a bit better. But, you know, maybe what we should do is, since a lot of these are obviously like quick pictures just taken for the internet, this is a decent one. I mean, it's better than I've done of wasp in flight, so I shouldn't sound so dismissive. But you can see how the highlight is spread out a little bit more. And of course, that's also because of the light. So if we go into the light here and maybe go into the properties, Redshift light properties, and let's increase the shadow softness and maybe increase the light distance. And let's see if we can bring down the intensity a bit more. And then also let's go into the light panel and take a look at the background. I'm going to turn it on again to adjust it, but I'm going to bring down the exposure just a little bit. It also has a Redshift exposure setting, but I'm just going to use exposure here. I think that's too much. Let's increase the reflect roughness a bit more, and let's go into the light. Turn this on. Let's bring the exposure 1.2. Let's try that. I'm not gonna blur it a little bit. Light here, Redshift light property. Oops, I accidentally turned off the light. You can like fake kind of like an area light by taking a surface and there we go, that's looking better. taking like a surface like a plane and applying an incandescent redshift shader to it, it works okay. It takes a long time to render, and I've been generally find better results this way. Usually when I get up to the point where I'm just like, it looks good, but it's not great, that's when I would start to think about using Redshift in Maya or, a full 3D program. Because the Redshift that's built into ZBrush is kind of like a Redshift Lite, just because you don't have access to all the nodes and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying a couple different views here. The other thing we could do is go into Redshift renderer and turn on depth of field and do the focus depth right here. Let's see how that looks. It's kind of nice. I think now what I want to do is, before I get into dealing with the wings, this is looking a little bit dull. So let's go back in here and see what we can do about that. I'm going to pull up the diffuse roughness a little bit. And bring up the SSS scale just to see what that does, or see how it affects it. With the subsurface scattering, you have an amount, a scale. Also, the mode is going to make a huge difference on how it looks. Okay, so here with the diffuse, I'm going to set this up to white. Sorry, the base. That's good. I think that gray color was kind of dulling, making my poly paint look a little bit dull, so that looks a lot better. The subsurface is kind of intense, but I kind of like it. Then I'm going to pull down the reflectivity a bit, reflect weight, and I'm going to bring up that roughness even more. Oh, and I'm also going to save, right? And I'm going to go to the renderer, and I'm going to up that under depth of field. Let's do the focus depth. I'll choose right here and increase the focus radius. And maybe next what I'll do is work on the wings. I increased the reflection roughness a bit too much. But it's kind of nice is to, like, I'm going to bring down the reflect weight a bit, and I'm going to bring up the coat weight. So that's like an extra layer of reflectivity. It might help give it kind of a waxy kind of insect surface. If you want to do something like a velvet or something like that, then you want to increase the sheen. We can do speed things along. Let's do render cursor. So I'll just do right here, and you can see just that's like rendering a region. So let's do coat weight. Let's bring that up a little bit more. Maybe the roughness is too high. Let's turn off the reflectivity altogether. So we're getting nothing out of the coat here. Why is that? Okay, I am getting something out of the coat. It's just way too rough, and the index of refraction is too high. So let's bring that up again. Whoa. Kind of being very all right, I think I've screwed up this material too much, so let's go and take a look at another one. Can always use the basic material. So, okay. Let's bring up reflect, color, weight. Bring down the roughness a little bit. And we do have a little coat on here, so let's bring down the weight even more. And let's bring the coat weight up. Let's bring down the coat roughness. There we go. Now we're getting something closer to what I wanted. And we'll bring down the weight a bit. That's too strong. That looks all right. I'm going to go to the thorax here and just increase the level of subdivision so we get some more detail in there. That helps quite a bit. Okay, so let's save this real quick. And let's increase the subsurface scattering amount. Let's do a render of the whole thing. Oh, that's looking pretty good. So let's go to the membrane here and let's talk about making these guys transparent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my paint. I have just materials selected, M for just materials, so not color, because I don't want to overwrite any poly paint here. Let's go to the higher subdivision level. And I'm going to choose, let's say, I'm going to do tinted glass. I'm going to do something fairly simple, but I also want that poly paint to be part of it. So we can do, well, let's do glass. And I'll do color, fill object, and then I'll go to the rear wing membrane as well, and do color, fill object, and then I'll switch back to my basic material. Let's go to that front wing and just lower the subdivision level so it doesn't take a billion years to render. We'll go down to subdivision level 4 or something like that, and let's do the hind wing and pump that up a little bit. And let's do render. Yeah, I don't have every shortcut memorized. Sorry about that. But you're quite right. you've displayed my ignorance for all to see, so congratulations on that. I look forward to watching your live stream. Control R. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And let's make sure I've actually filled that with color. Shortcut shaming, that's what it is. You shortcut shamed me. Okay, so now I gotta adjust that glass material because it's obviously a bit too transparent. I'm not sure what's not showing up on our hind wings though. Unless, did I put it on the hind wing vein instead of the hind? Yes, I did. Oh, well, that's what happens when you name something wrong. There we go. Let's just do this basic material. Okay, so for that glass material, let's see what I want to do. Actually, let's do this real quick. I'm going to see, can I do that? No. Actually, I can go in here and subtool. Let's do this. Z plugin, subtool master, fill, material. Okay, there we go. I'm going to fill that with all that material. Then I'll go down here and fill this with clay. And then go here to hind wing vein. I named it wrong, fill that with glass material. Color fill object, and then fold, and I'll fill that with the object. Okay, so now let's do that real quick. Oops, obviously the legs got that glass material. The subtool, I mean, it's probably a mask applied or something like that. Let's go here. There we go. That's looking good. Okay, so let's switch to that glass material, and what I want to do, reflect color, roughness, bring this up a little bit. Leave the IOR where it is for the moment. Refract weight. Let's bring the refract roughness up a little bit, just make it kind of translucent, but let's set the refract IOR down to like, 1.1 or something like that. Maybe even less than that, 1.05. And doesn't need subsurface scattering. Can add a little thin film to it. Let's see. The trick is to get it look more like thin glass, which is good. I mean, thin surface, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that transparent. Redshift for Maya has a nice, well, at least the older version had a translucency setting, which you could use instead of subsurface scattering, that I think looked better on insects. But let's see. Refract IOR, let's set this to like 1. But then we'll pull down the refraction weight and pull up the refraction roughness. And let's bring up the diffuse color weight. Using the hotkey Control R, are you excited? I want to make sure that use material colors down a little bit. And let's pull down the coat. Its coat weight is already down there. And bring down the reflection. Control R for render region, that's the hotkey. I don't like that at all. Let's see. Let's bring down the reflect color weight. Bring up the refract weight a little bit more. Let's see. So let's go down here, maybe change the color of the refraction to just like this yellowish color, see if that kind of helps out a little bit. Kinda, sort of. Bring down the reflect color weight, and then bring up the diffuse color weight a bit. Okay, now it's getting somewhere, I think. At least we're getting that yellowish tint in here, although it's a bit strong. You can see that depending on the age of the insect, sometimes it's darker. Like this is a deep red, which I kind of like, actually. But I'm going to bring up the refraction weight a little bit more, and the refraction roughness a little bit more. And then also the reflection roughness, I think, a little bit more. Let's take the front wing fold. I'm going to bring up the subdivision level so he starts to see some of the detail in there, because that should affect how it looks as well. That's getting there, I think. The thing that's missing, of course, on this is tiny hairs. I don't know, obviously I'm not going to do that tonight because I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes, but that, of course, adds a lot to the realism. The other thing is the paint on here is perfectly symmetrical. So I really want to improve the increase the realness of it, and go and start painting some asymmetry on here. Let's see. I'm just going to increase the subdivision level on some of these so that we have a little bit more detail. Not too much because I don't want to take it forever to render. And let's pick a nice view here. The other thing I want to do is let's test out one of the other backgrounds. Under the lighting, we'll go into light property and background, and let's choose this one, the sunset. I want to see some of the wings in here. And I'm going to render and depth of field, focus depth, let's put it right here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Subsurface might be a bit high on the legs there. Oh, you know what it is? I had that glass shaders applied to the front leg. That's why it looks weird. Let's put a front leg and basic, and we'll do color, fill object. That's kind of cool. The depth of field there is a little bit extreme, but it gives it kind of that more of that macro look. That looks pretty nice. The twig is looking a little bit blown out. So let's add some color to the twig again. I'm going to save this real quick. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Of course, I'm going to be finishing up here in about 10 minutes, but I'm glad you showed up. Let's do RGB, color, fill object, maybe a little bit of gray in here. Mask by smoothness. Okay, just kind of random colors in the twig, just so it doesn't look so blown out. Let's do another render. It's looking pretty cool. Let's do a quick comparison with our reference here. Yeah, the hairs are going to make a huge difference. So to add hair to it, that helps a lot. Obviously, a bit more work on the wings, getting some of this nice detail in the specular highlights would help. But, you know, for rendering straight out of ZBrush, that's not too bad. You know, I think the lighting in here is nicer because we have that more of a diffuse quality from the diffuser. So what I'm going to do is let's go in here and let's set the light to the top here, kind of like they have in there, and I'll increase the intensity a little bit. And let's see, light properties. Redshift light properties, distance, and softness. The interface for the light is always kind of weird. I want it to be from the top here. Yeah, that works. That front leg. Just to get some more detail in there. And it's so cute. Let's try a different view. So then we can see more of the thorax. Maybe something like this. I'll go in here, remember to, the abdomen, I'd like to increase the subdivisions of that. I think that would help a lot. And then we'll go in here to render. Make sure we adjust our depth of field. Lower the focus radius a bit. This is looking pretty nice over here. This looks a little bit more plastic, but you know, it's not bad. I think I could have an easier time making it look more realistic with, you know, because the other thing is, if I was going to render this in Maya or something like that, I'd also take this into Substance and start breaking out roughness maps and subsurface maps and curvature and all other kinds of textures that I could then bring in and mix into the shader. So that would make it look much more realistic. But again, for straight out of ZBrush, that's not too bad, you know. It's great, you know, this is a great thing, like if I was going to show this to a client or something like that and I didn't have time to set up everything in Maya, either this or something like Keyshot would work pretty well, just to give them an idea of what it would look like. You know, with the obvious caveat that this is not a final render, you know. Let's do this. Get a look at that eye, see how the eye is looking. The number one thing that makes an insect look realistic after all this other detail is hair. Even if it's just a little bit of hair, it makes a huge difference. Wasps obviously are not as hairy as bees, but they still have a little bit of hair on them. Let's see if we can get the eyes to look good, and then I will call it a night. That's too much depth of field. We'll just let it go. So one last thing I want to say is, if you're curious, I have a course on using Redshift for ZBrush that's available on Udemy. Let me bring up the URL here. And it goes through, it's actually a course on all ZBrush materials. And then there's a whole section on Redshift. If you want to check it out on Udemy, it is Demystifying ZBrush Materials. So it goes through ZBrush standard materials, matcap materials, Redshift materials, rendering with Redshift, rendering with BPR, and all that kind of good stuff. I also have ZBrush for jewelry designers. This is a nice overall beginner's course. It's mainly designed for people who are coming from the jewelry world who never used digital sculpting before when I put it in their workflow, but it's actually a overall introductory beginning course for everyone. And then I have, well, that's the fundamentals right here. So it goes through all the fundamentals of the interface and everything that makes ZBrush work. And then I have ZBrush for jewelry designers understanding ZBrush geometry. So this talks about subdivision surfaces and Dynamesh and ZRemesh, and has some pro tips in here, how to use projection, decimation, Sculptress, morph targets, booleans, remesher, all the different things. Like if you're wondering how these different things work and how you incorporate them into your workflow, that's what this course covers. So you can check those out on Udemy. I'm going to be adding new courses soon when I get a chance. I think with regards to what I talked about tonight, that one on Redshift, demystifying Redshift materials is really useful. And like I said, it covers all material basics, standard, matcap, layering materials, creating materials, Redshift materials, and all that kind of good stuff. So check those out. And let's do one last quick render of our glorious wasp. Yes, I drink Lagunitas IPA. I know it's trendy hipster to drink IPA, but it is my preferred. I like beer that has bitterness to it. You know, I can't get into lagers. Sorry to say. I know that makes me a hipster beer poser or whatever, but I don't care, man. I'm gonna bring up the subdivision levels on this, and just do here like this. I like a good hazy IPA. Good hazy IPA is nice too. Okay, I get addicted to rendering. I actually really enjoy rendering. I probably take it too far, but I want to get that eye, the ommatidia and the eye visible. So I just increase the subdivision level, so hopefully this won't take too long to render. Yeah, I can kind of see him from this distance. She's looking pretty though. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining me tonight. I hope you got a lot out of this live stream. Next week I will be back on Thursday night, 7:30 to 9:30 Pacific. I think it's time I go back to my longhorn beetle project that I was working on a few weeks ago. And get back to working on that. So that'll be a bit more sculpting and detailing and that kind of stuff. So thanks a lot, everyone, and I hope you have a good night.